Welcome in, everybody, to the coverage of the Fantasy Football Players Championship Pros versus Joes Draft number 3. I am your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. It's the Bourbon League tonight. We're going to find out who's winning a 2025 FFPC Main Event squad. It's a very special episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'll bring in my co-host here in just a minute. We have the third of 6 special episodes for you. It's the 2024 FFPC Pros versus Joes Bourbon League. We're covering it for the entire duration tonight. Shout out to the chat room right now, taking this in on YouTube, X, the Better Sports Network, and Facebook. Connect with us at HSFFO, at Eric Balkman, at Dave Terp. Check out Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFFO, or email the show at the High Stakes Fantasy Football inbox at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, all the X posts and emails throughout the broadcast, thanks to the hard work of our producer and mutual friend Rob, and our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce. On tonight's program, we have 6 Joes and 6 Pros. Here is the draft order. Matt and Andrew Stone are picking first tonight. Curtis Patrick from RotoViz and Ryan McDowell from Dynasty League Football are picking second. Noel Coombs and Joey DeFilippis are picking third. They, the FFPC duo, picking third tonight. Dwain McFarland from Fantasy Life is in the cleanup spot, followed by Rob Linkowski and Robert Finkel. You're looking at Brian Drake and Matt Donnelly from Fantasy Points, picking 6th. Rich Lowe and Bob Tittman will be drafting 7th tonight. Mark Garcia from 1 Week Season, he is drafting 8th. Michael Zuka, a very talented best ball drafter, is picking 9th. Bob Harris from footballguys.com is picking 10th tonight. Jared Hines drafting 11th, and Brandon Murchison from Rotoballer is 12th. We're already through one round. I'll bring in my co-host, one of my co-hosts tonight. He's the 11-time FFPC league champion, Dave Terpoilli. You follow him on the X at Dave Terp. Dave, it was a story of, one night the Joes dominated, one night the Pros dominated. I think we're excited to see who breaks the tie tonight.
A lot of talent in this draft tonight. I expect big things.
You and me both. I'll bring in my other co-host tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He runs the KFFSC.com Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, the incomparable Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, welcome aboard. So glad to have you tonight as 10 o'clock in the Eastern time zone for you guys. I'm in the Central, so I'm a little bit spoiled. I'll get to bed a little bit earlier. Ferrell, welcome in. How are you, man?
10 a.m. or 10 p.m. Balky. It's the middle of the afternoon for me. This is perfect. Thank you for stretching it out. Terp, have you been hunting big game or something? I love this jacket.
I just try to change my outfit every night.
Camo jacket is so impressive. Hi, Akuna. How are you? I take umbrage and disgust with the declaration from our lead broadcast professional, Eric Balkman, that the Joes may have somehow in night one have been outshined by the Pros. I believe that not to be a fact.
Okay, and we'll find out too, right? Because we'll add up the points. Or Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes, is going to add up the points throughout the season, and we'll figure out who wins between the Pros and Joes this year. Guys, we're already through the first round. I'll take you through it here as we follow this pick by pick for the entire duration of the draft tonight. The Stones take Christian McCaffrey at number 1. Patrick and McDowell go CeeDee Lamb 2. Tyreek Hill is the choice for number 3. That's Coombs and DeFilippis. Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall. No surprise there. McFarland takes Robinson, and Linkowski and Finkel end up taking Breece Hall. Jamar Chase goes to Brian Drake and Matt Donnelly at the 6th spot. You're looking at Justin Jefferson to Rich Lowe, followed by Amon-Ra St. Brown to High-Low FF. That's Mark Garcia from 1 Week Season. He goes with St. Brown at the 8th spot. Michael Zuka goes with A.J. Brown from the 9th spot. Puka Nacua to Football Guys. Bob Harris at the 110. Jared Hines takes Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jonathan Taylor to Brandon Murchison. Ferrell, I know Jared Hines has been in the chat in watching the first 2 on YouTube. You think there's any advantage into analyzing these drafts and looking at what other people do, given that he's going to be drafting against 5 different Joes and 6 different Pros in this draft tonight?
Oh, yes, because Terp brings the heat. And, this first round is a carbon copy of everything we've seen. Terp, have you seen a guy jump into the first round that you're somewhat surprised is up there?
Garrett Wilson falling to the second round is pretty big so far. He went 8th overall, I think 9th overall last night.
Yeah, but that's just still not that big of.
All things considered, with the first round pretty much being stale, top 5 is pretty much set in stone.
So Puka went second last night, and they switch out Puka and Wilson.
Yeah, I agree. It's not too crazy, but it's still, if we're trying to find something different, I mean, that one's pretty different, all things considered.
Do you guys think that in this format, guys, because I always say it's unique. Number one, it's the FFPC, so it's obviously going to be unique. But when you talk about 6 pros and 6 FFPC Joes, I almost wonder that everybody is kind of like dipping their toe in the water in the first round, right, Terp? Like nobody wants to make a big splash because they don't know exactly how this draft is going to go. And I wonder if that's why we see so much chalk in the first round, draft in and draft out these first 3 nights.
I agree totally. I mean, I think you're going to see it pretty much going all the way up until September. You're not going to see many crazy picks get moved in there. Obviously, if there's some big news or a big injury, could move somebody up. But the first round out, at least like the first 10, 11 guys are going to be pretty much set in stone, and maybe a little different order. But, 12 is where it gets interesting. Obviously, you can go a bunch of different ways there. You can go receiver with Harrison, London, Puka if he falls or move somebody else up. You can go with the running back route of Barkley Taylor, maybe move A-Chain up if the press, continues to pop on him. Or you can mix in one of these top 5 tight ends. And, I mean, realistically, you can separate them all you want, but they're all very similar and all present tons of upside. And like we talked about in the episode 1, double tapping the tight end from the 12 spot is not something that, I think is crazy. I think it gives you an advantage, and it makes everybody else draft a little bit scared at the position, because you're going to see guys move, the Ingrams, the Pitts, the Kittles of the world, like we saw last night, get moved up, and it creates a different dynamic and creates players that are falling to you.
I want to bring in our first guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the new guy at Football Guys, but not really the new guy because he's been around the fantasy industry for a long time, offering not only crushing drafts, but offering great advice. You hear him on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, formerly of Fantasy Football Diehards, the FSWA Hall of Fame member, and a guy you follow on the X at Football Diehard. Ladies and gentlemen, he is drafting tonight from the 10 spot. We'll bring him on right now. It is Bob Harris. Bob, welcome into the program, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Good to see you, Eric. Good to see you, Dave. How's everyone doing?
Everyone's doing good. You're coming up on, I can't remember if I said you're picking from the 10. I think 10. 10. Okay. So you're picking from the 10 spot tonight. You're coming up on a pick here, but let's analyze these first 2 picks for you, Bob. Puka Nacua and Travis Kelce. Number one, how likely did you think it was that you were going to get Nacua going in before the draft started?
Not very. I struggled with that pick. You guys were talking about Garrett Wilson. I mean, it was Nacua or Wilson. I've kind of split that up a little bit, and seems like I've hit the Nacua point of my my portfolio. So a little worried about. I'm a little worried. Is there going to be a huge downturn? Is Cooper Kupp going to be healthy? And then I remember Puka Nacua is very good. So I'm probably gonna roll with that. Boy,
you're on the Bob is on the clock right now. So yeah, Bob is on the clock right now. 45 seconds on the clock. So just to recap, Nacua and Mile High Luke, we will get to your question here shortly. For Bob. Nacua was the 110 for Bob Harris, Travis Kelce at the 203. And Bob, you go back to the wide receiver position here with Mike Evans. Why do you think that Evans was the strongest pick for you at the 310?
Best ball format, touchdowns, big games. I think he's still going to have that. I don't see any sign of him slowing down. I'm not happy that there's a new offensive coordinator there. If there was going to be one, though, Liam Cohen seems like the good choice. Baker Mayfield, shows up in Los Angeles after a long flight, a cross-country flight, studying an iPad, and comes out in Los Angeles and does a great job. Cohen's part of that. I think he's comfortable with that guy. And, every time I talk to somebody who covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I ask them the same question. I asked the same question about Travis Kelce, and we'll have that conversation too. Is there any sign of slowing down? And the people on the ground tell me no. And so I'm going to kind of take that as their word. And if that's the case, I think Mike Evans is kind of annually underrated. We kind of just think it's time he's falling off the cliff, yet here he is not falling off the cliff.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too, is we haven't seen signs of it. Bob, you talked about the people that you trust, and they're saying, yeah, Kelce's not slowing down, so he makes it. And you get Kelce in an FFPC draft in the second round. This is fantastic, right? Because you never get a tight end of that ilk after the top 12 picks are off the board, but you get him tonight. He's going on average in the early second round too, so it was very on brand tonight. Mile High Luke, Botanical Extraction in the YouTube chat right now. He wanted to know, as I try to find it and post it on the screen here for you, Bob. He wants to know if you would have still taken Puka Nacua had Michael Zuka not taken A.J. Brown. If A.J. Brown was out there, would you have still taken Nacua?
AJ Brown all day long would have been an easy call. Huge, big game player. You saw that streak last year, the 125 yard games. I would have loved to get that. I didn't. And then I pondered that one. It was going to be Wilson. Was it going to be Nakua? Was it going to be Gibbs? In the end, it was Nakua.
In the end, it was Nakua.
And I still don't feel good about it.
I always say
why Kelsey over Laporta?
Kelsey is my tight end one. I think, you see the speed they've added this offense. Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown should open things up. We've seen Patrick Mahomes' 80 average depth ADOT drop since Tyreek Hill left. And now last year, I think was his lowest, career lowest or somewhere near that. I think we see that pick back up. And I think that's good news for Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm. Bob, you are back on the clock here. We're looking at 9 tight ends off the board, 18 receivers off the board, 11 running backs off the board. All quarterbacks still available here in this format. You have 2 receivers. You have Travis Kelce here. Talk us through what the thoughts that are going through your mind right now with 30 seconds on the clock.
Probably looking at tight ends and probably really upset that Jake Ferguson went right there. Not happy with that at all. Boy, now the decision is, do I punt and move on? I'm probably going to grab a tight end, and I'm probably not going to be real happy with it. I like Dallas Goedert slightly more than David Njoku, who has struggled with Deshaun Watson as a quarterback. So I'm going to go in that direction. Like Goddard is never seems to deliver, expectations. Dave, tell me it's going to get better.
Is it going to get better? No.
It's not. I don't see how it gets better with those 2 guys on the outside, and
I don't see the big games. I think maybe it's consistent production.
Bobby kept you on the damn show 1 pick too long.
It was fine. It was fine. I just like if I thought Joe Flacco was still in Cleveland, this would be an easy call for Njoku. Mm-hmm. And there's an argument to be said that, for the notion that, hey, this was Kevin Stefanski's going to realize how he's got to use him more. I just don't see the connection there between Njoku and Watson. So I'm leery of that one. I mean, did I want to take a chance on Freiermuth? Not yet. Do I want to wait? Like, this is the thing of being at the tail end. You've got to be a little more aggressive than you want on some positions. And already this draft makes me want to bang my head against the wall.
Well, you say that, Bob, and John Terry in the YouTube chat right now is saying that tight end desperation is real, and he's right. We already have 10 tight ends off the board in the first, 39 picks. And Bob, you actually are one of 2 teams with 2 of them already. So I'd like to think that there's going to be some value falling to you with running backs and receivers in these upcoming picks.
That's the hope. And look, there's a ton of value at those positions, especially running back. Just seems like we get down into that, generally speaking, 5th round on, you see an entire universe of players who are going to get a ton of volume. That's what I'm chasing these days. You know this, Eric. We've talked about it before. Volume is king, right? I mean, nothing happens. It's the primordial sludge from which all fantasy points arise. And so if I can find some players that I think are going to get sure volume, and many of them are still on the board, guys that I think are going to be very consistent producers, both as runners and receivers, I'm going to hit that.
I think the other thing to keep in mind that Bob's doing here is you look at the last 3 picks, Kelce, Evans, Goddard. I think there's a misconception in formats like this where you have to finish first in order to get paid off, and you have to have these miracle breakout guys. Bob, you're showing us tonight that sometimes these grizzled veterans that have done it before, sometimes going with these picks early on, not always the worst idea in the world. Age isn't just it's just a number, right?
As a grizzled veteran, whose age is a very high number. Yes, I totally agree with that. But also, I'm going to be taking some chances on some rookies, getting some of those ambiguous backfields later on in the draft, where I take some shots on some players that are young players. I think in this format, you're going to have to kind of hit on 1 or 2 of those guys and get a little bit lucky on that, especially with playing with this crowd.
Yeah, Fantasy Mojo saying our tight ends going extinct.
Yes,
well, it sure looks like it tonight. It's crazy.
It's funny. All these. I've seen some like this. It's funny because it seems like every one of these drafts is its own creature.
Totally different.
Right. It's like super flex drafts. Sometimes it's like the horse race is on and every quarterback's off the board in 2 rounds, and other times you're like in the 5th round going, oh damn, I'm still getting pretty good quarterbacks. You just never know. And the same thing with these tight end premium drafts. Similar circumstance. You just never know until you get into it how it's going to go. And my desperation was getting real at tight end, knowing I was going to come all the way back around. That's a long turn. And boy, I wish I had gotten Jake Ferguson. 100% wish that. I almost said I really wish.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
should have.
So, yeah, we got it. Yeah, we're reading into that. For what it's worth, Ferguson too. I think his ADP in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, again, a tournament ADP, which is different than this, is 504. So it's like you can't even feel all that bad about it, Bob, because somebody even reached higher than you would have to grab him here. So it's it's just one of those things. You brush your shoulders off, you shake your hands, and you move on to the next round.
It's something, if you're out there in the view, you're looking at your draft, and like I would say 70% of the time I come out of the first 4 or 5 rounds thinking this draft is going to hell in a handbasket. And then I get into round 15, I go, oh damn, this ain't so bad. And then I get to round 20, I go, this is pretty damn good. I can live with this. So, draft isn't over till it's over. Don't panic early on. Even if you make some picks that like if we get pressed in those hard decisions, and I think all of us have been doing the same thing. We're in best ball rooms, flexing our draft muscles all, throughout the, since February. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of in a position, or at least hope you put yourself in positions where you get in a sticky wicket. You make at least some reasonably good calls. And so far I have not done that, but no. So far, you make the calls you make, and then you sit there and you ponder and you wonder if you made the wrong calls. By the middle of the draft, you start feeling pretty good and talk yourself into the fact that, hey, I took the right guys.
Yes, absolutely. And you're helping us take the right guys with the advice you're giving. Tell us when you're on SiriusXM, and also tell us something that I've been enjoying the past few days, this new podcast that you have with football guys.
Yeah, every morning you can get it. It comes out, I think, at 5:30. Just kind of a quick rundown, 10 minutes, run through all the top news of the day, put a little fantasy spin on it, give you a little context, what you should and shouldn't pay attention to. You can also find my fantasy notebook at Football Guys every Monday as well. I'll have more coming up, some more video and other content. But in the meantime, you can catch me on Sirius 4 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday. So it worked out perfectly this week. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days a week, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Then once the season hits, you know how it goes. It'll be up to 6 days a week, and there will be no rest for the wicked. And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we are too. More Bob Harris in our life. That's what we all need. We follow
Never
you.
enough.
We will continue to follow you on the X at Football Die Hard. Bob, thank you so much for joining the program tonight. Enjoy the rest of the draft, man.
Appreciate you having me on. Good seeing y'all.
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Bob Harris popping aboard here tonight as we motor through. We're halfway through the 5th round. Just catch you up in the 4th round. We kind of talked about what Bob did here. Dallas Goedert after the Ferguson pick. We see Deebo Samuel off the board at the 404 tonight. Mark Garcia ends up taking the first quarterback as Josh Allen goes as QB1 at the 405 tonight. Michael Pittman and DJ Moore to Lowe and Drake and Donnelly after that. David Njoku, the 11th tight end chosen within the first 44 picks of the draft. He goes to the Steel Curtain. The Steel Curtain obviously is I just had it in front of me. My apologies, guys. Linkowski and Finkel, sorry. And then you're looking at Dwain McFarland taking his 3rd straight receiver in George Pickens. Oh no, I'm sorry. I got Malik Neighbors, 2nd straight receiver. George Pickens goes in the 5th round, the one after he takes Neighbors at the 409. Jalen Hurts, 2nd quarterback, 410 tonight to Coombs and DeFilippis. Devonta Smith and Stephon Diggs wrap up the 4th round here tonight. When we look at Ferrell, and I'll ask you about the Malik Neighbors pick for Dwain McFarland. People are all up in arms about Marvin Harrison going early in drafts, the rookie receiver there, as he fell a little bit tonight. Marvin Harrison normally goes at the maybe not that much. So he goes at the 206. That's kind of on brand for him to Richard Lowe there at the 7th spot. But you look at Malik Neighbors, this is another rookie receiver that not a lot of people are talking about here. And he ends up going in the 4th round. Is he going to pay off that ADP this year?
No. I think anyone that's drafting Neighbors that high may be addicted to hopium. Additionally, I think that there's so much question with the quarterback there. And we've seen it for years. And Terp told us last night that Singletary is not going to deliver at the running back position. What makes you think that this rookie who's come into this offense and this team, which has ruined other rookies, or less than what we expected?
You remember Odell Beckham?
That was back, Terp, when you were in high school. We got to talk now about we've got to talk about a little more. I'm talking about the last couple 2 or 3 drafts, and even though certain of them were drafted by different general managers. Rodgers. So no, I don't like that pick. Matter of fact, I was going to hold this up. Oh shit, you can't see it. It says Pittman on it. That's who I thought that Bob was going to pick. I love what's going on in the fourth round with the receivers better than what happened with. Yeah, it's just not good.
It's interesting. And like Bob was saying too, and guys, I mean, like, well, let's go back years here. Have you ever seen a Pros versus Joe's draft that has all these guys cranking purple like this before?
No.
I can't recall one off the top of my head.
Never seen anything like tonight. I mean, there's been, obviously some like guys getting picked a little higher than normal, but
right.
Goddard and Njoku, I mean, that's a full round and a half in some cases. And now the quarterbacks are starting to get moved up after last night where all the quarterbacks, fell. Like Kyler Murray got pushed up. Hurts kind of fell a little bit. Mahomes kind of fell a little bit. It's been a wild draft. I mean, this is all over the place. This is definitely not anything to do with ADP. But there are some teams that are really, really good so far. I love what Dwain McFarland's doing from the fourth slot right now. I mean, he's pretty much people were criticizing his Andrews pick, but I don't mind it at all. I mean, I think he's very close, if not right in that top five that everybody seems to pack together. And then the receivers afterwards. I mean, I'm a Neighbors guy. I'll draft a ton of Neighbors. Pickens, I'm kind of like in the middle on him. I'll have a little bit. Mm-hmm. The Arthur Smith thing scares me. I don't even like saying his name. I can just stutter every time I say it because he's just a babbling idiot, and I'm surprised he got a job. But I'm trying to stay off the Arthur Smith stuff tonight. Nico Collins is the number one option. I mean, I think he's going to be the guy that's going to be the biggest beneficiary.
No kidding.
of the addition to Diggs. So I love what he did so far. He's definitely the leader in the pack as of right now.
Okay, now John Terry, God bless him, he's in the show, and I've tried to get from guests numbers all week long, and I have failed miserably. So I'm going to ask John Terry, and I'm going to ask Terpoilli, both of whom seem to be big Neighbors supporters. I'd like to know catches, yards, touchdowns for that player. I would just like them to give me some numbers.
How come you're not asking me? I'll give you numbers.
No, I
don't do numbers.
These guys have basically, as you say, Balky, planted their flag. Yeah. I want to get some numbers of what these guys are going to produce.
1,000 yards.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say.
Let's say 7 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Catches, we'll say 83.
I was going to say 75, but I guess you are the noted Neighbors fan of this trio, Terp.
I am.
I'm and I'd like to see him. I'd like to see those numbers from.
I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be as bad as people think he's going to be this year.
No,
I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be a superstar.
Hey,
but
he's got nowhere to go but up, and Neighbors will help him. So let me ask you this, Terp. Are you willing to put wagers on the proverbial steak dinner that I still have not collected from 2 years ago on each of these numbers? Each of these numbers. Terp.
No.
Any of these numbers.
Well, how do you do that?
How about we just do this? Malik Neighbors versus Michael Pittman.
I'm not engaged in that this year.
You just talked about you take Michael Pittman.
You love Pittman, though, Ferrell.
I did. Well, I would probably beat you in yards, and I'd definitely beat you in catches.
I don't care. All I care about is end of the year fantasy points.
Well, okay,
Neighbors
that's what I'm
saying.
End of the year fantasy points. You want to go
all these
Pittman
catches and
versus
stuff. That's
Neighbors.
too much stats for me.
I'll take the bet. I'll take the bet.
So the bet is on Neighbors versus Pittman. They're going as wide receiver 19 and wide receiver 22 in FFPC Superflex and the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, excuse me, right now.
Based on this board, means a whole lot.
It does, exactly does.
It's hard to take these boards and really, when you look at the Best Ball ADP on Mojo, you can't go off Pros versus Joes and Best Ball. They're totally different. These boards are crazy. Team 1 also good start so far.
That is Matt and Andrew Stone. A lot of receivers go in the 6th round here, guys. Let's bring in our next guest, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most esteemed Joes drafting tonight. You follow him on the X at @ship_chaser. He was the 3rd place overall finisher in the 2019 FPC, a guy who is no stranger to these airwaves. He is the incomparable Jared Hines, drafting tonight from the 11th spot. Jared, how's it going? And more importantly, how's your draft going?
This is going great. I'm doing great, man. Good to hear from you and to the other guys. Good evening. I love it. It's I don't know exactly how these things are going to turn out. I watched the last couple nights mostly just for the entertainment. I didn't think I was gonna learn anything that was super useful.
Groundbreaking.
No, I mean it's just entertaining. It's good to see it, and I knew it was going to be different than ADP. It would be its own animal, and so there is that to look at. I guess the obvious question is the 2 tight end start and just the tight end landscape that we kind of keep hitting over and over again here. First of all, I guess I would say that if Gibbs wasn't there, I actually might have reached for Kincaid in the first, and that could have been a little bit of a splash compared to what we've seen the first couple nights. I think the tight end field is stronger and deeper at the elite top than it's ever been that I can ever remember. And for anybody not named Kelsey, I think it's sort of even money between him and Kincaid, and I actually have Ferguson as my next favorite for finishing as tight end 1. I love all those other tight ends that went in the middle there in between those, but I like those 3 more. And I went with Kincaid over Kelsey just because I think Kincaid has an edge. I think he dominates targets in Buffalo. Diggs and Gabe Davis left town, and nobody seemed to have noticed.
And you were saying too on YouTube in the chat room earlier, Jared, that had Jahmyr Gibbs not fallen, Kincaid was actually going to be your pick at 111, right?
Yeah, I think so. Looking at that board, I believe I would have done that. Because then I'm happy with either a second tight end in the second. I probably would have taken Kelsey right there. Or there's a number of other names I like there as well.
No Laporta?
No. He'd probably be my first and biggest fade from the elite tight ends. I'm not saying he's not going to produce, but I think between Gibbs, I say Amon-Ra is the one that is not going to lose any of his share. He is by far the most talented player in the wide receiver core. I think Gibbs gets a bump in targets, not a lot because he's already at an elite level. But I guess I shouldn't be saying names out loud, but I think that there's, I guess you can kind of read the teams where I'm going with that. But I think that Laporta is going to have his targets eaten into. I think he still produces and is an elite NFL player, but for fantasy, I don't see him returning this value that everybody's drafting him at. And I'm also I'm not too bent on stacking, so going Gibbs and then Laporta together doesn't super interest me.
Let's talk about the tight ends tonight. You've been in a lot of drafts with the FFPC. I mean, how surprised were you to see all these tight ends go up? 11 tight ends in the first 44 picks, and then you had to be loving life because you were the first team to double up on tight ends tonight.
Yeah, and I mean that was by design. I try to pivot off of the board and the draft as it unfolds as needed. I'm on the clock here.
Finish that point while you think about your pick. I'm going to recap the viewers on what you've done so far.
Sure thing.
So Jahmyr Gibbs is the lone running back. You take him in the first round. Jared also has a pair of tight ends in Dalton Kincaid and Jake Ferguson, a pair of receivers in DK Metcalf and Zay Flowers. He ends up getting the stack of Flowers and Lamar Jackson, as Lamar Jackson was his the second pick of the 6th round. So he's got a pretty balanced roster here so far. 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, a quarterback, and a running back here. 25 seconds on the clock, Jared. Let's talk about this here. What are you thinking here for your 6-0 or for your 7-11 pick?
Basically, best player available. And just to sort of tie into another thought, part of the reason for going double tight end, it ties into this. I think there's just a lot of depth at running back and wide receiver in this year's fantasy landscape, or at least as we sit here at the end of July. And I felt that way all off season. And because of my read of the tight end landscape, I have never, ever really been an advocate for the double tight end, bully tight end strategy. I'm generally not a fan of it.
This year it works.
I think this year might actually legitimately be an exception. Now, in this format, and specifically pros versus Joes, where it's we're only starting 8 players each week. There's no defense or kicker, right? And so, if you do have a positional advantage at tight end, I'm not talking about the flex, but just the tight end spot, or at quarterback, that mathematical advantage is actually amplified. And nobody ever really talks about that. But, if you get an edge there, it's actually stronger than, in a league where you're starting 10 players or say 3 wide receivers. And so, anyway, I feel confident about the way the running back and wide receiver depth looks. So why not hammer a double tight end and a lead quarterback?
Make your strength even stronger, right?
And I mean, even starting off with Gibbs, I mean, I feel like it's just very balanced so far, and so hopefully it continues to play out that way. But
the ship chaser, Jared Hines, now on the clock again with his 8:02 pick. Gibbs and Robinson now joining Lamar Jackson in the backfield. The pass catchers are Kincaid, Ferguson, Metcalf, and Flowers. Again, we talked about this the last night. I think it was last night, guys, about the importance of being balanced and letting the value come to you where it does. Now, Jared went with BPA, the last pick with getting Brian Robinson here. And because his team is so balanced, he has the opportunity to do just that again. Talk us through this pick here at the 8:02, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, it really is best player available. I don't feel I'm going to make the pick here in a second, but I don't feel compelled to take a third tight end. I don't feel compelled to take a second quarterback. And I mean, so I'm going for a guy that I think could dominate targets on his team. I'll talk about Malik Neighbors in the 4th round or Marvin Harrison in the 2nd round. I think Brian Thomas has as good or better of a chance than both of those to dominate his team's target share, and might be as good as both of them.
Love that pick.
Yeah, so Brian Thomas is the pick here, and this is another upside pick that could end up making a huge splash and outperforming his ADP here at the 8:02. Jared, we will continue to follow you on the X here at @ship_chaser. Good luck. I know you had that great 3rd place finish in 2019. You've added multiple league championships since then. And I know you're chasing after that $1 million ship this year in the Fantasy Pros Championship and the FFPC Main Event. Good luck in both of those. I'm sure it won't be long before we have you on the show again. Thank you so much for hopping on tonight, and enjoy the rest of this draft, dude.
Yeah, man. Have a good one. Thanks.
Good luck.
That is Jared Hines, ladies and gentlemen, at @ship_chaser on the X, hanging out with us tonight on Pros versus Joe's number 3. By the way, Fantasy Pros Championship drafts are filling up each and every day. Go to myffpc.com. There's actually drafts tonight. The midnight draft still open tonight, so make sure you're checking that out. myffpc.com, $1 million grand prize at stake, and you can draft for it this evening. Guys, let's get back into it here. 7th round, we see let's just talk about Dwain McFarland's team. Terp already told us what he thought about it, and Terp, I don't know if you've changed your mind on it, but
nope.
Okay, Terp hasn't. Ferrell, what do you make of Dwain McFarland's team from the 4 spot tonight? He of FantasyLife.com. Robinson and Andrews, running back and tight end early, and then 5 straight receivers in Collins, Neighbors, Pickens, McLaurin, and Reed. Ferrell, think about the Pros versus Joe's format. How do you feel about it, McFarland squad?
I like it a great deal. I would have probably, we've already talked about Neighbors. I would have done something different than Neighbors, but other than that, it's a good team. These guys are talking about running backs and the depth, and I'd like to see who they think is going to provide this depth at running back and when they're going to get them, because I can see them going away pretty quickly. So that's what I'm curious about.
And still tons of them left.
Right.
Yeah. Where does the tons end? Come on. Woo.
About round 11.
That's not tons, Terp. No way you
with a format like Dwain McFarland is building right now with a hero RB, he could take, this is best ball, obviously, so he could take 3 or 4 or 5 guys in a row. All he needs is one of them. I mean, he's betting everything on Bijan, which is fair.
I'm talking about the whole board with the running back. We just had our guest say that he thought there was great depth at the running back.
There's plenty of players that I'm not going to mention that, when they.
Well, that's when you say there's plenty of players. That's what I'm asking you. I'd like to know who some of these plenty are.
When they come off the board, I'll give you a thumbs up and let you know.
Okay.
I don't want to steal. If anybody's watching this, I mean, there's definitely one guy that I'm very, very outspoken on that has not been picked yet.
Okay. There's several that haven't been picked today.
Well, I will say this. We have not seen, at least I don't think we've seen the Titans guys go. I mean, they're still out there. You're looking at another Commanders running back that's still available that I know we've pumped up on the show before. There's a few rookie running backs here that has still been unchosen. So there are
another Bengals running back that's out there.
Exactly. Yep. That's another one. So, I mean, there are ways to do it. And he actually goes, McFarland goes with a 6th straight receiver here too in Rome Odunze at the 809 too. So
I've been very outspoken on Rome Odunze.
You have.
What have you said?
But this pick makes a ton of sense.
What have you said about Odunze? I have missed it. I missed the boat.
If he's your wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6,
Okay.
I'm all for that. I
Yeah.
have no issues with that at all. But when you're putting him as your wide receiver 2, 3, 5, or 4 in some structures, I think you're making a mistake. We saw it last year with JSN, 3 talented receivers there last year, and the issues with the offensive coordinator, Shaden Waldron. I know Caleb Williams should be an upgrade over Geno Smith. We don't know that yet. We don't know how the rookie's going to adapt to the NFL. Will he struggle early? Everybody's banking on a Keenan Allen injury. So I think Rome Odunze on the right structure, I'm all for. But if you're banking on Rome Odunze early in the season, I think you could be in a world of hurt.
So McFarland takes Odunze as a 6th wide receiver. So that is a very unbalanced team. But let's talk with a guy who has put together a pretty, once again, a balanced team tonight from the 12 spot. Excuse me. He is a staff writer for RotoValler. He is the host of the Woo Fantasy podcast. You follow him on the X at Roto Superstars. Drafting from the 12 spot tonight. Please welcome aboard Brandon Murchison. Brandon, welcome in, man. How's it going tonight?
How's it going, fellas? Thank you for bringing me on the show. We're having a fantastic evening. Hopefully you guys are having a good one as well.
Absolutely. We're loving it. We're loving your draft. We just talked with Jared Hines, who's drafting right next to you in the 11 spot. How do he likes his team so far? How do you like your squad from the 12 spot?
Well, that's the thing. Drafting from the 12 spot, you always you want to kind of dictate the draft yourself, because you want to go grab players that your players. You want to be on the front end of a run. You don't want to be chasing a run. So that's kind of where I've been at with the 12 spot in this draft so far. I've let kind of things play out, see how the board's going to fall. And so far, so good. The way I've kind of built the squad so far, like you mentioned right when you brought me on, is I feel like I've got a balanced squad that I've put together so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. 3 receivers, 3 running backs. You have a tight end. You have a quarterback. And we'll go to the YouTube chat right now, Brandon, for a question for you from John Terry. He wants to know, you ended up taking the first tight end off the board. It wasn't Laporta. It wasn't Kelsey. It was Trey McBride. Why was he your tight end 1 tonight, man?
Just for the upside alone, I've actually got him ranked as my tight end 1 for the season for 2024 right now, just to build on what he did for that latter portion of the 2023 season. Once Kyler Murray came in and that offense you started to see kind of take shape, I see that kind of building, even with Marvin Harrison coming into form. I think it's going to keep a lot of the middle of the field open for a guy like Trey McBride. You're going to see a lot more, easily a guy that's going to pace the position, I think, in targets this year. And if he can get a little bit more of the regression to the positive from the touchdown standpoint, you've got a guy that should easily be in that top 1, top 2 discussion at tight end.
If you take what he did over the last 8 games of the season last year and project that out, that makes that the smartest pick on the board. It's a wonderful pick.
Yes.
Brandon, the Brandon Ayuk selection at 312 tonight. He ends up reporting, despite wanting to be paid, despite requesting a trade, he reports to training camp today for the San Francisco 49ers. And you get him at 312. His ADP in the best ball tournament for FFPC is 310. Were you at all surprised to see him at the 312? I mean, based on the news that we got today, didn't you expect him to go earlier in the draft?
Yeah, you kind of assume that he's going to go a little bit earlier, but I'm not very shocked where he's going, especially in the draft tonight. So, really, when you look at how the board's unfolding, like I mentioned, you've got a lot of the tight ends flying off the board, and that's going to push a lot of these players, the running backs and the wide receivers, a little bit further down the board. You have that kind of dichotomy between he and Deebo Samuel. You don't know which guy's going to be selected first between those two. But for me, I'm at a spot, we mentioned I go running back, I go tight end to start my draft. I know I'm going to be a little bit further down the board when it comes to that wide receiver position. But Ayuk's a guy that I've got ranked in the teens right now at that position. So I'm not getting a wide receiver 1 in terms of talent, unless there's, an increase what he sees in the target share this year with the San Francisco 49ers. But if he does see that increase in the target share, there's a good chance that I might be getting a steal there at 312.
You absolutely
sure
could.
are.
Yeah. And you're on the clock right now. We'll take the viewers through your team right now. Joe Burrow is the quarterback. We've got 3 running backs for Brandon Murchison, Jonathan Taylor, Kenneth Walker, and David Montgomery. Perimeter receivers, Ayuk, Cooper Kupp, and Christian Kirk. And then you're looking at Trey McBride as your tight end. Now, Brandon, we have 12 quarterbacks off the board. We've got 32 running backs off the board. 49 receivers. Despite all the tight ends being pushed up tonight, now we're into the 9th round. We still only have 14 of them off the board. I don't know if you'll go quarterback here, but there's certainly every other way that you go. Of course, I didn't think Scott Hoyt was going quarterback after taking Joe Burrow the other night, or after taking C.J. Stroud, and he takes Joe Burrow. So what the hell do I know? Brandon, take us through this pick here.
Well, it's more or less kind of playing the board. The first pick, I'm going to go back to the running back position, going for volume specifically. And I'm going to take Devin Singletary with the first pick there. Like I said, mostly a volume pick. Second pick here, looking at the board, seeing how a lot of the players have fallen off this last round. You mentioned that quarterback run in the early stage of this round in round 9. So for me, I think this pick here, I'm going to kind of attack that position again. And with that pick, I'm going to go and grab my stack with the guy that I have at wide receiver 3 right now, Christian Kirk, and I'm going to get Trevor Lawrence and hopefully see a little bit of a bounce back here this year with Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, there you go. Trevor Lawrence here as the 10-01. So two quarterbacks on the team right now, Burrow and Lawrence. You get Devin Singletary as your number 4 running back as well. One other question I wanted to ask you, Brandon. I know you're plugged in with what's going on with the Cowboys. Jake Ferguson, 402 tonight. That really caught me off guard, and that Jared Hines took him there. And then it even caught me more off guard that Bob Harris said he was ready to take him at the 403. Maybe Ferguson is a player that I need to start pushing up my own draft boards, right?
I'm not going to lie. I did waver on that pick between Cooper Kupp and Jake Ferguson, mostly because
you're a Cowboys fan?
Obviously, yeah.
That's unfortunate for you.
Yeah, too bad.
That's
I mean,
unfortunate.
I see what you got going on behind you too, and we're at odds here, but it's fine.
We're always going to be.
Can we stay with you as a guest long enough to get to the Zeke Elliott pick for you? Can we just?
I'm on Zeke this year.
just stay with you. It would be so wonderful if we could.
Yeah, we need to let that.
Even Dallas fans don't know what they're doing right now.
When Terp says he's on Zeke,
they haven't paid Parsons
this year. Just don't pay any attention to it. Just don't.
Yeah, it's all a fake. He's trying to draw people off. That's what I expect there.
We got Cowboys fans in the chat. What is going on tonight? A Braves fan and a Cowboys fan. Jesus, Mr. Acuna in the chat's not my guy at all.
Right.
Oh, he is.
Well,
we might have to launch him for one night.
Brandon Murchison from RotoBaller, tell us what's up next for you at RotoBaller for anything you're working on there, as well as the Woo Fantasy podcast. When's the next episode coming out?
Yeah, obviously that's we're working on some things, doing some writing, getting everything going with that with RotoBaller. A little bit of stuff too that I'm going to be contributing to Fantasy Pros as well. So be on the lookout for that. Rankings I do, with RotoBaller, so you can find those there. The Woo Fantasy podcast, looking to put one together this week as well. Possibly a little bit of review with this draft tonight. Talk a little bit of the receivers as we got in the training camp. A little bit of news and some tidbits coming out there. So we're going to be looking to talk there. And on top of that, I have a Fantasy Pros Division Championship to defend this year, and I've got to jump in, find me a draft spot, so I can get in and defend that championship this year.
Not only defend it, but maybe win that $1 million, Brandon. That would certainly be nice as well. Roto Superstar is the X account. Thank you so much, Brandon, and enjoy the rest of this draft tonight.
Appreciate it, guys. Y'all take it easy there. Thanks.
That is Brandon Murchison, the Roto Superstar from RotoBaller and the Woo Fantasy Podcast, selecting 12th tonight as we are wrapping up the first half of this draft here tonight. The team on the clock right now is Patrick and McDowell at the 2 spot. We'll take you through the 10th round here. You already saw the Trevor Lawrence pick to Murchison. Jared Hines takes Curtis Samuel, followed by Cortland Sutton to Bob Harris, the 3rd receiver he's drafted. Jared Goff is going to be the starting quarterback for Michael Zuka's Mongooses in the 9 hole tonight. Tyjae Spears and Trey Benson to Garcia and Lowe, respectively, followed by Joshua Palmer, the 5th receiver drafted by Brian Drake and Matt Donnelly, right smack dab in the middle of this draft. Blake Corum and Zach Charbonnet after that. Corum goes off the board to I forgot it again. He goes off the board to Linkowski and Finkel, which we're going to hear from Rob Linkowski in just a little bit. Then McFarland takes Zach Charbonnet. Tyler Lockett, Charbonnet's real life teammate, goes to Coombs and DeFilippis, the FFPC Joe duo drafting at 3. Patrick and McDowell end up taking Jerome Ford at the 10-11. And then the Stones are on the clock, Matt and Andrew, with the final pick in the 10th round. Jared Hines takes Curtis Samuel. Ferrell, we've heard from a few people so far on the show this year saying that Samuel actually could be the number 1 receiver there over Keon Coleman, over Khalil Shakir. What do you make of Curtis Samuel as an early 10th round pick?
80 catches, 950 yards, and Terp's 8 touchdowns to top number. No, Samuel is looking at him. He's a typical 70 catch wide receiver. He's going to go to this team and do a little better, and he could do a lot better. I like the spread of the players up there, and it's one of the reasons at tight end at this team. I can agree with everyone that wants to move him up the board because he's an electrically talented and skilled player, and there's not a dominant wide receiver in that group. And for this format right here, I would follow that right back up with Shakir. Shakir's just a damn good football player, and that's a good thing. Well, are we at the halfway point?
We are at the halfway point.
Yeah, I would like to tell Sean Green, who has asked a couple times what I am drinking tonight, since I appear to be the only person on theme with the bourbon evening. I've the Jim Beam white label, which I always save to put with cola, but not Coke. You put it with this stuff. I don't know if you can see that.
What is it?
It's the cane cola.
Cane cola. Okay.
You got to mix it with the cane cola, and then you can. That oak taste comes out very.
You're going to be feeling good by the time this is over.
This is a breakfast drink, Terp. This is not a thing to be serious.
I forgot you're a different breed,
and I haven't had dinner yet either. But it's okay. But anyway, you guys would join me in a drink. But that is what I'm having tonight, and that's what we'll serve. We got a very special bourbon to serve at sunrise at the Bourbon Turn because that's the league Balky will be in.
Yep, absolutely, no question. Sunrise. What is that? A 7:30 start or 8 o'clock start?
7:30 a.m. and we'll be serving Blyer bourbon, which Rocky Blyer has launched from out of New York.
You know where Rocky Blyer's hometown is, right?
I think I do.
Gorgeous, beautiful, underrated Appleton, Wisconsin. That is also the hometown of this guy right here. So fantastic stuff that we get the Blyer bourbon at the KFFSC. Register now, kffsc.com. Live in Cincinnati, live in Louisville, coming up in less than a month. Jared Hines, Ferrell, he's joining you tonight. He is actually sipping back on some bourbon himself, drafting from the 11th spot tonight.
I knew Jared and I were cut from the same cloth.
Mm-hmm. No question. The team. Well, here's the thing. We've talked a ton about Dwain McFarland's team. Guys, what do you make of the pick after Odunze? He gets Jaden Daniels, Zach Charbonnet, and then obviously Ezekiel Elliott, a guy that Terp hates but still loves. And then
loves.
Well, tolerates in fantasy. But the Jaden Daniels pick, man, I really like that. When you wait and you wait and you wait at quarterback, you play the board, and then you get a guy who, again, this winner of this league will get a first place or will get a free main event entry into the 2025 FFPC main event. Second place gets nothing. Jaden Daniels is exactly the type of quarterback you want to be in business with in this format, sir.
Still, nothing's changed on this team. It's one of the best teams I've seen drafted so far. People are going to criticize the running back too, and that's fair. But with the receivers, the elite tight end, and in what some people could say is a top 5 quarterback if all things work out this year, I don't care who my running back 2 is. He's going to draft a bunch of guys. There's a bunch of guys that are still left. Are they the most sexiest guys to look at? No. Mr. Elliott over there is going to be he's looking at me right now trying to find guys. Charbonnet, we don't know. You could tell yourself a story. Zeke, it's a good draft pick with his team. It's going to get him some serviceable weeks that realistically, what does he need from his running back 2?
3 points.
Well, what does he need? 10 points
3
a week?
Points.
With the receiver group that he has, the tight end, the quarterback that, he's going to have to add to that room a little bit just because it is a rookie quarterback. So there's questions, but he has plenty of options. He has plenty of outs there. He has, Daniel Jones late. He has Russell Wilson late. That's it. But he also has plenty of other stack options that he could materialize and work out for him. I know people are going to say like they're two terrible running backs, and that's fine. But in best ball, when you have Bijan Robinson is the 101, like some people like myself think, I have no downside to this team right now. You know, people are going to say you should have took, you know, another running back over Odunze. That's fine. That's a fine, you know, critic. But he'll stack running backs. There's still plenty of them there available. They'll be serviceable.
I love it. Plenty of them.
Ty Chandler, my boy, is still there. We can keep going down the list. Marshawn Lloyd, you know, we can. There's plenty of other guys that are going to come off this board here soon that will be serviceable. Jaleel McLaughlin, you know.
Oh, now we're talking. Now we're getting
keep
somewhere.
going down the list of guys who have not been drafted yet that are going to be Kendra Miller, serviceable guys that are going to be fine. Team 4 is the best team in this league so far and might be the best team that I've seen drafted so far.
In this year for Pros versus Joes, you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about a team I think is interesting here and get your guys' take on the team drafting in the 6 hole tonight before we bring on our next guest. Brian Drake and Matt Donnelly are selecting this team from Fantasy Points here. And this is another team that just, again, goes back and forth, scooping up value where they can. It's a pretty balanced team. Purdy is the starting quarterback. I'm sure they're going to add to it, to that stable there. But Barkley, Rashad White, Aaron Jones in the backfield. You have Chase, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Worthy, Palmer, and then Ingram and Hawkinson. And I think the Hawkinson pick is interesting because you get him below value, below ADP value. He's as the 17th tight end off the board, mid 11th round. Again, this is a player that will not start the season healthy, but he could come on like wildfire at the end. Ferrell, what do you make of Drake and Donnelly's team, the Killer D's at the 6?
You know, I like this team, and I like what they've done middle on. I'm not too particularly thrilled about Worthy, but I love Palmer. So I'm willing at some point.
Why are you not thrilled with Worthy in a format like this?
I'm just not. I would not have picked him there, but I was going to say before I was so rudely interrupted that in this build, as Terp would say, in this build and in this strategy, a field stretcher like Worthy really works here. And I don't know if you had to pay that draft spot for him.
I apologize for my interruption because you started.
But you interrupt me. I love it.
You started making some sense, so I was a little worried you were going off.
It's fantastic to the back and forth is tremendous. I love it.
Wouldn't want it any other way.
This is a very good team. We're talking since we're picking out our favorites. My favorite in this draft so far is Team 12.
Team 12, you like. You're a big fan of Brandon Murchison's squad. Let's bring in our tonight's next guest, ladies and gentlemen. You follow him on the X at Fink26. He is drafting along with Rob Linkowski from the 5 spot tonight. Please welcome onto the program, Mr. Robert Finkel. Robert, what's going on, man?
Not too much. How are you guys doing?
Hey,
we're doing very good, having fun, kicking back, relaxing, and calling the action here. It's been a lot of fun for us. You're going to be on the clock. How are you communicating with Rob? Do you have him on text?
No, he's not here at all. He's just the face of the franchise.
He's the face. You're the brain. I got it. Okay. You don't need to read it. That's fantastic. You're on the clock right now. Tell us what you're doing at the 12:08 here.
Well, so since my goal was to come in with a 0 running back, lots of receivers, and somehow I have 3 receivers through 11 rounds, I think I better start finding some receivers somewhere. And so I am actually going to go to one of the guys that you talked about a minute or two who I've thought about the last couple of rounds. And
Shakir. There you go.
Yeah, as your number 4 here, and we'll just kind of go through the draft here. I want to we'll go back to round 4, and at the 408, you guys take David Njoku. What was that something that you had thought about doing, that you had planned out, like, okay, I want a tight end here within the first 4 rounds, or did the board sort of dictate, like, okay, I should probably think about grabbing a tight end maybe a little bit earlier than I was planning tonight?
Yeah, that was the board, and I probably flinched. Although I do like Njoku, other than I'm a little concerned with him with Watson, but he had some big games, and at least in this format, the hope is I can deal with when he doesn't go off. My original plan would have been a tight end in 5. But I was afraid one wouldn't come back to me.
And I think that's the case. Like, I don't want to say you flinch, but I think it's a reaction, and when you react or when you have to react, sometimes plans go awry. So I get it. The Freiermuth pick in the seventh round, was that dictated by the fact that Njoku was your number one tight end? You still wanted to get one before everybody else started going crazy with these tight ends tonight, even more?
Yeah, a little bit. And then, while as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan who's also a little afraid of the Arthur Smith, the one thing I sort of think is maybe they dump off a ton of passes to the tight end. So I kind of had targeted Freiermuth as a guy I wanted. And so it was a nice combination to try to give me the two guys there and hopefully get at least a tight end one every week.
I think Freiermuth may be comeback player of the year in the NFL.
100% agree.
See,
I think that's aggressive, but I will also say I think he's going to be a lot better this year than he was last year. But it wouldn't surprise me, I guess. Well,
the only thing that
would
this year is Arthur Smith. That's it.
Well, that's who they give the comeback award to, Bob.
Right,
These guys that were a lot better this year than they were last year.
That's fair enough. Robert, the pick here, you talk about being a Steelers fan. One of the few times that I've seen Najee Harris go after Jaylen Warren, you get him here tonight. I think the Arthur Smith effect is in effect in Pittsburgh because he loves utilizing his running backs, and Pittsburgh's got two of them. You actually get the starter 2 picks after Warren goes off the board. Were you ready to take Jaylen Warren if Najee Harris was gone?
If Najee was gone, I might have gone one of the receivers there. I was thinking a little bit about Adunze or JSN or Keon Coleman, trying to build up the receivers. But I did like Najee in the 8th round.
Trying to see the picks early on. I think Breece Hall, no surprise there that you took him. Drake London, again, a very, very on-brand pick there. Achane at the 305. It's one of these things too, and I think that you got a good deal on Achane, by the way. Yeah. I think I was talking with Turk about this at the top of the show, is that because people are not necessarily knowing the format, like some of the pros might not be as accustomed to drafting in the FFPC as the Joes. Yeah. I think people can be a little bit conservative with their picks early on, their first 2 or 3 picks. Did you feel like you were being conservative at all prior to that Njoku pick?
I was trying to find guys that I thought could go up, like the Achane and the London. I think from the last couple of years of the best balls where I sort of tried to build them out more like FFPC normal and would have the par guys, the guys that would get 10 to 15 points a week, but never do better than that. And just seemed like that guaranteed you to finish 3rd through 6th. Right. I was trying for guys that could give me, big scores in weeks.
Yeah. And Achane's one of them. London's one of them. And Breece Hall for sure is one of them. We have about 30 seconds left on the clock, and forget it because you've already made the pick here at the 13:05. Can you take us through the process of deciding on Josh Downs here, Robert?
Yeah. So I still felt like I needed more receivers. I kind of liked, a little bit with Downs. Richardson started off well last year, so I'm kind of hoping maybe the Colts offense, as opposed to maybe a more conservative veteran.
Jared Hines drafting from the 11th spot tonight. Loves the Josh Downs pick there for you, for sure. So now, as we move through the remainder of the draft, you think you're set at quarterback with Love and Tagovailoa, or you think you're going to hit that position one more time?
Yeah, I don't think I'll take another one. It's funny because normally I like to wait, but in this format, I thought it's important to try to get your 20 to 30 point week every week. So I wanted 2 of them. Love was kind of the guy I really loved, and so I really did want him. The Love Watson were sort of 2 guys that I really had high, grades on in my mind. So I was kind of happy to get both of them. And then I just seemed like with Tua, he put some big games up, and to sort of have him to combine with Tua with Love was what I was hoping for.
Well, you can always team up Pat Freiermuth with Russell Wilson late and get your enjoy your Steelers fandom while still cheering for your fantasy team here too, Robert. If you decide to go with another quarterback, which it sounds like you probably won't, and that might be wise.
I could go with Justin Fields.
Russell Wilson this year.
You get Fields for sure. Fields is another guy that you could look at in this format for sure. It has been a pleasure talking with you, Robert, tonight. As we got 7 rounds of action left tonight. I think you got a really good team. We haven't talked about it a ton, but hopefully, excuse me, we broke it down enough here. We'll probably hit it again as we move through this the remainder of this draft. We will continue to follow you on X at Fink26. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast, and good luck winning not only this draft, but the $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event this year, my friend.
Thanks, great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. That is Robert Finkel, ladies and gentlemen, the brains of the Steel Curtain, drafting at the 5 spot tonight. Linkowski and Finkel there, and we got the brains on, which is always good. 13th round is now complete. Let me just ask, because we've been talking. It's been like a Jaguars wide receiver show. You know, we talked with Jared Hines when he took Brian Thomas. Christian Kirk is on Brandon Murchison's team. Ferrell, a player that you really like. Terp, Gabe Davis goes in the 13th round to Matt and Andrew Stone here at the 1 spot. What do you make of his value this year in Jacksonville? Is he being undervalued by FFPC drafters right now?
The big playability in best ball will definitely, you know, put them spike weeks out there. And I think Gabe Davis is a little bit underrated. I still think he's the 4th option, you know, on the team behind Ingram, behind Kirk, behind Brian Thomas, and in some cases behind ETN. But he's going to have those weeks that, you know, we saw in Buffalo where he goes, you know, 25, you know, maybe a 30-point week mixed in, but he's also going to have plenty of weeks where he clunks. So I don't mind Gabe Davis in this format. He would be a nightmare in redraft. I just don't ever see how you're going to start him weekly and actually click that button. But in best ball, in this spot, I feel like, you know, if you're talking about some of the guys that are drafted above him, I don't have any problem with Gabe Davis.
I think that you know, you bring up the spike weeks, which are important in this format as well. Ferrell, Terp, and God, I want to say Wan'Dale Robinson went way later last night. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Because he goes in the 13th round tonight to
where he should go.
Yeah, and that is I don't want to say it's an overdraft. It was an oversight by somebody last night, but I love Wan'Dale Robinson here in the 13th round. Pop Douglas goes to Brandon Murchison here, Ferrell. You like his team. Do you also like that pick for Brandon's squad as he goes with Demario Douglas as his number 6 wide receiver?
Yeah, I do. And I probably have overlooked Douglas in some of my drafts. I was drafting him earlier. I got away from it. The NFL drafts served the New England wide receiver well with the complementary receiver that is in there with Baker. So I like what he's doing there. That's a great pickup where we are in this round. And Rubio answered my question. I asked Kirk earlier. I asked Terp earlier, where do the running backs run out? And Rubio just threw it up there. Ray Davis.
They're out now.
Ray Davis. Well, but the Terp is too late. Ray Davis is
probably where it would end.
Ray Davis is where it runs out. That's, you know, good old Kentucky.
Ray Davis, I'm pretty sure, has not been drafted yet. He was pretty much where my cutoff would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Hubbard will give you serviceable weeks. I think Tracy has potential. We talked about last night how I'm not a Singletary guy. Jalen Wright has a double out. If
there it is.
The Mostert.
There it is.
Ray Davis is pretty much. I mean, you could use the rookie running back for the Chargers, I guess. I mean, it makes sense if you could tell yourself a story with Gus Edwards and with J.K. Dobbins being, you know,
there's been a lot of stories being
average backs. Team 4 is still the best team in the league, and it's not going to change. I don't see anybody that's going to top it. Yeah. I mean, there's been some really good teams drafted in this, and some teams that, I don't like it all.
Kendra Miller, Jalen Wright, Kamani Vidal, all added by Dwain McFarland here with his last 3 picks.
All he needs is one. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Really, only one? I think he needs 2 of those guys.
Well, likely, but I mean, he needs throughout the season. He's going to need 2, but I mean, weekly he needs one guy. I mean, he's betting on Bijan Robinson. When you do a structure like this, you're betting on Bijan Robinson to beat Christian McCaffrey last year, and if that's possible, he might not even need a second one.
That's entirely possible as well, Terp, as we move through this draft tonight. Sean Green, who's drafting in this contest on Sunday night in the Moonshine League, chimed in and he said, "Well, what do we think about Team 9? That's Michael Zuka's Mongooses, and rather than have us tell you about Team 9."
I love Team 9. I'll say it before he comes on.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll just bring on the guy who's put together this juggernaut. He is Michael Zuka from the Mongooses franchise. Michael, welcome on tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. How happy are you with your team right now?
Not too happy. I mean,
Why?
There's a couple picks I want back. Pacheco pick in the 3rd round. That's one that I kind of want back.
That's fair.
Taking 4 receivers there, just because I didn't know the running backs would fall. When I'm getting in the 9th round, I could have taken Chase Brown. I could have taken Tajay Spears in the 10th, and I couldn't because I needed receivers and quarterbacks.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20, Mike, for sure, and you know that obviously.
Well, you've got at least 2 guys over here that'll take this team off your hands.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah,
Please
avoid any drafts with me because I don't want to see you in any of the drafts with what you just said.
Well, I think I'm like 4th or 5th place based on how many teams you've loved so far, Terp. So yeah.
I've really only talked about team 4, and I don't know how I apologize. I did oversight your team.
He only has eyes for
Brown.
4.
I think you're the 2nd or 3rd best team in this league.
There you go. There you go. You're getting the Terp love, or at least the Terp like.
And if your team wasn't very good, I wouldn't say it. You know that,
right? Mike, the tight ends being pushed up tonight. You end up with Brock Bowers at the 604 as the tight end 12. When you saw all that purple on the board early, you didn't necessarily panic. You stuck to what I assume was your draft plan. You still end up getting a tight end that, while he's a rookie, he is an uber talented rookie. How excited were you with the Bowers pick at 604?
I hated that I had to make it because you saw who came off the board right after him.
Right.
Who just showed up for camp, and going to lead the league in receiving. I wanted to take Amari Cooper, but I couldn't. So when I saw all the tight ends go off the board, I knew it was going to stop. So I wasn't going to force Bowers in the 5th. I knew that he'd be there in the 6th. Because people aren't going to take
great value for Amari Cooper. You have Mojo up. I don't have it up right in front of me. Where is it?
I have it. Again, we're going.
He's stuck in the 5th round.
We're going with the FFPC Best Ball Tournament ADP, but Amari Cooper 507. So yeah, good value on Cooper tonight.
Great value.
For sure. And I know you're a Browns guy. You don't think the drop off. Well, I shouldn't say the drop off because Watson was the starter. My concern, Mike, this year with the Browns is I just don't know how successful Cooper and Njoku are going to be without Flacco pumping the ball downfield. And given how Deshaun Watson has looked in his Cleveland career so far, it's been kind of underwhelming. It doesn't sound like you're too concerned with that, at least for Amari Cooper's purposes.
Yeah, it's Njoku I'm worried about with Watson. Yeah, Cooper had some good games with Watson last year. He was probably the only guy who did well with Watson. So, yeah, Cooper's fine. Just the concern was he'd hold out and force a trade or something.
You talked about, and well, actually, you're going to be on the clock here. You're on deck right now as Hilo, Mark Garcia is making his pick at the 1508, and then you'll be up at the 1509. Just to go through Mike's team here as he considers what he's going to do at the 1509. The quarterbacks are Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers. He's got Pacheco, James Cook, Zamir White, and Austin Eckler, in his backfield. A lot of receivers here: A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Deebo Samuel, DeAndre Hopkins, and Jamison Williams in the tight ends. He's got 3 of them in the first 13 rounds. Brock Bowers, Hunter Henry, and Noah Fant. So, again, a balanced team. You could probably go a lot of different ways with this pick here. I would say maybe not quarterback.
Jordan Love.
But, you could go with that position here. Mike, take us through what you're thinking here at 1509.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to take someone who plays for the Browns now, but I'll take the last quarterback to win a playoff game for the Browns. I'm going to take him right here, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
In this format, I love having 3 quarterbacks, and he's kind of the end of the tier here. And just since I waited so long on quarterback, I wanted to have 3 of the top 24 there, and that was.
I'm going to stop saying when somebody is on the show and on the clock, you probably won't take a quarterback here because every time I say it, the pick is a quarterback. Mayfield joins Rodgers and Goff on this team. Mike, the other thing I wanted to ask you about here is not necessarily the pros versus Joe's best ball. I want to talk to you about the bare knuckle best ball that you do in Las Vegas every year. 30 seconds per pick, no computers, no devices, no notes, no nothing.
Psychopath.
You have to do it from memory, and you've been doing it to a lot of success over the course of the last few years. How have you been able to pull that off, man? Yeah,
just a lot of practice, and that's kind of why I joined on, because I'm aware there's only 6 signups for it so far. We have 6 openings for the bare knuckles draft. I guess maybe you're scared of me or something, but
that could be. That
marketing
could be.
skill.
We can't sell the draft and say compete against Mongooses, who does really, really good in this draft.
No, yeah, well, I mean, I won't win, but I'll probably come in second. I've come in second 3 times out of the 7 times I've done it. But it's a lot of fun, and everybody kind of asks, everybody says they're going to be in it next year once they see the board, once they see us out there. It's a lot of fun, and it gets harder for me every year because the other people. I think they've caught up to me. Really, the first year I did it, I got an edge just by not drinking before the draft. That's all I needed to do.
That's a massive edge.
That's one.
The first year I did it, there were people running laps around the tables and going nuts for every pick. And
it was the sort of guy, Terp, you follow golf. What's the hole at the Waste Management Open every year? That's the big the beer hole where everybody goes crazy. The bare knuckle challenge it used to be like that, where everybody
because last year was the first year I actually paid attention to it. Like I actually watched it.
Yeah, and
I was standing next to JD, formerly of the Goat District, and we were both watching it. Like, what the heck? Like, how do people do this? Like, obviously, we all have wealths of knowledge of fantasy football, but like, that's stressful. And like you said, it's after the game, so like half people are 12 beers deep, a couple shots, and they're trying to go out there and call out names in the 14th round. That's wild. It's one of the craziest things I've ever witnessed in Vegas draft wise.
It has calmed down in recent years, as Mike can attest.
Yeah, last year was very quiet, and there were people getting mad because there were some rowdy people that won a lot of money on the Lions last year, and they were chirping a lot. And hey, if I won a lot of money on the Lions last year, I'd be chirping too. But you're in the middle of a draft; it's a lot of money, and you have nothing in front of you to help you. I mean, it's a wild dynamic.
Adonai Mitchell is your pick here, Mike, at the 1604. A guy that may not be successful every single week for the Colts this year, but man, when he does catch those big passes and utilizes that speed, he's going to find his way into your lineup, right?
Yeah, that's an upside pick. I've taken enough safe guys so far, and so value upside. Yeah, that was.
I like the team. Terp likes the team too. Ferrell, does this get the Ferrell Elliott stamp of approval as well from the 9 spot?
Yes, until we took Baker Mayfield, but I'm willing to forgive you for that.
You should have took Will Levis over Baker Mayfield. But besides that,
I know because he has the same bye week as Goff.
Oh yeah, I don't have bye weeks in front of me here.
There you go.
That's part of it. Yeah, I think I have the bye.
Very strong part of it.
See, and that's
the best to do it. So
that's why Mike is
too much.
That's why Mike's so good in the bare knuckle because he knows these bye weeks. Like the back of his hand for sure.
And the players he's taken, I hope I avoid him in all drafts.
Right, exactly.
There's a lot of guys that he's been drafting here that I love very much.
You may not want to draft against them, but you always like hearing his insight. We loved hearing your insight
100%.
tonight, Mike. This was great stuff. The Mongooses picking from the 9 spot tonight. Mike Zuka, good enough to join, gracious enough to join the show. It was a lot of fun having you. We'll see you out in Las Vegas, man. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. That is Mike Zuka, ladies and gentlemen. A guy. We talk about the bare knuckle. He's really, really good in just best ball in general.
I really love the Bowers pick that he had. And do you guys really like Goddard and Njoku more than Bowers?
Goddard and Njoku more than Bowers.
I'm not the biggest Bowers guy, but I would take Bowers over those two.
Yeah, I would too. And
I
sure
don't
didn't
know.
happen tonight.
I just don't.
That means you're not a Goddard or
is
Njoku guy at all. Then.
Goddard's not winning you $1 million in my opinion.
Sir.
I could regret that. He could have a 30-point week in week 17, but I just don't see, even with an injury to Brown or Smith, that Goddard's going to be the one that, takes you to the promised land. I feel like there's other guys around him I just like more, and that's coming from an Eagles fan.
I think the thing that I have in regards to Brock Bowers, it's one of those things that I love about fantasy football and drafting rookies because you don't know what they could do. But the problem with that is you don't know what they could do. You know what I mean? Like that's the issue is like, I think I have an idea in my mind of how the Raiders are going to use him and Michael Mayer together. And obviously Devontae Adams is still on that team too, who's going to be a huge target monger. And don't forget about Jacoby Myers. So my concern is that Brock Bowers maybe takes a little bit to get entrenched as a prolific playmaker, as a guy who's going to be catching a lot of passes every single week. That would be my concern there. I've seen Njoku do it. I've seen Goddard do it.
Also, don't forget the offensive coordinator
for Las Vegas.
For Las Vegas, Luke Getsy.
Right.
Former Packer quarterback. You're falling back in the deep crevices of your very impressive brain. You're falling back to the picture of Bowers standing next to.
I don't think anything he said's wrong.
That's just,
well, no, but like the optics, I don't know what Ferrell's talking about, where he looks. Who is he standing next to? Because Bowers looks tiny. Yeah, he looked tiny next to Gronk. And I like my hairline is not in great shape, but I might take my hairline over Brock Bowers at this point.
He doesn't look like an NFL football player.
Have we seen a birth certificate from Brock Bowers? Have we seen that?
The expectations for this player, I think, are very, very strong. And we hear many times that old word, that old phrase, coach speak. But, you know, the coaching group out in Las Vegas, they kind of say it like it is. And I like listening to them. I think you can.
Quarterback is the question. Obviously, Devontae Adams is going to get a ton of targets.
Yeah.
But I think Bowers is going to be pretty solid to start the season and could be spectacular to end the season.
Yeah. I don't think either of those quarterbacks are going to do anything for fantasy football except get the ball to everyone we're drafting. Right. I think they're going to be wonderful for the high volume receivers in that offense.
Going back to Dwain McFarland's team from the 4 spot tonight, he gets George Pickens in the 5th round. Terp, what do you make of this Russell Wilson, this cheap stack that he gets Wilson and Pickens?
I'm higher on Wilson than most. I mean, I think he's going to take that job. I feel like all the positive press you've heard so far from Tomlin, it's going to be Wilson's job. Fields not really have a chance here unless obviously injury happens or Wilson just looks complete dusty in the preseason, but I don't think that's going to happen. He also just took Roman Wilson, so that it makes a lot of sense for that team. I would like to see him add a 3rd quarterback. Russell Wilson is somebody I would love to have in a 3 quarterback build. But I mean, he did exactly what I said he was going to do with those running backs in a row. You cannot like them, you cannot agree with them, but in this format, I think it makes a ton of sense. If Team 9 had a little bit better quarterbacks, I would take them over Team 4. But Team 4 to me. Team 4 and 9 are the clear-cut winners of this draft so far.
Okay, and I know Ferrell likes Murchison's team.
They'll finish behind 12.
I also like Team 5. I mean, they'd be my top 3 right now.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's we're not talking enough about Jared Hines' team. I like what he's doing from the 11 spot tonight. You know, the other thing, too, is not that anybody's trying to win the overall title because you don't get anything for winning the overall title, but I think there is a certain amount of prestige to
put it on your Twitter profile.
Right, yeah, and the pressure's on the pros trying to take this title back from the Joes, and the pressure's on the Joes trying to keep the title for a 7th straight year as well. Drake and Donnelly in the 17th round have just taken Jalen McMillan. Ferrell. Jalen McMillan is a player that I thought was very, very good at Washington until he got hurt. He steps into a Tampa team that has Evans, that has Godwin, and I think there's potential there for him to maybe step in and be relevant for fantasy purposes this year if an injury should strike either one of those guys. I think he's one of these rare rookies that are going late in fantasy football drafts that could be worthwhile. I like that pick from Drake and Donnelly here.
I don't think the quarterback supports the 3rd receiver in Tampa, and I believe the real money to be made in what is left of the Tampa passing attack will be at the tight end position and will definitely be at the running back position.
John Terry, getting back to the Raiders tonight, when we're in our Brock Bowers conversation, he says Bowers catches passes 2 yards from the line, which is all Raiders quarterbacks are capable of. With the burn on the Raiders quarterback, be it Minshew or be it O'Connell. Ferrell, it sounds like O'Connell's the guy right now, at least.
The odds switched today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was minus 125 Minshew. Now it's minus 125 O'Connell.
You know, my great scouting friends that have strong opinions but sometimes won't express them, they'll say, hard to say. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to say hard to say. But locker rooms behind both players, each quarterback will support the other one. I don't think it's going to be. I think the coaching staff has already decided. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, all right, but we're not privy to it yet. Right?
Yeah, neither am I. So I don't know.
O'Connell makes the most sense.
Over Minshew? Why do you like O'Connell? Why? Well, let's talk about it in terms of fantasy. Terp, is O'Connell also the right choice for fantasy, like to pump up those Raiders skill position stats more?
I think so. I mean, I think he's just a little bit better. I mean, Minshew definitely has a live arm, and he's obviously a character.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like from a team perspective, for a team who shouldn't win many games, O'Connell's a guy you would like to see if you have anything with him. I don't think you do personally. But I don't see the benefit of starting Minshew. It just, to me, he's going to win you enough games to be annoying to keep you away from, a top pick. O'Connell, you're going to figure out real quick. If he's, first couple games, if last year he had a couple games at the end of the season that weren't awful. It seems like Devontae Adams wants him, and that's obviously, I think, the most important. But I also see a path where Devontae Adams is not with the Raiders, after the trade deadline.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if they're real bad, he can buy into Antonio Pierce all he wants. That guy wants to win. He's not going to go through another losing disaster.
Yeah,
he is. I would say, again, you always hear the Jets rumors, and that's all cool and stuff. But somebody making an offer. The trade deadline at the NFL is usually kind of quiet, but somebody make an offer for a player like that who could take you from a good team to a great team. It's definitely in the range of possibilities.
Ferrell, team won tonight. Matt and Andrew Stone gets CJ Stroud at the 7:01, Caleb Williams again at the 11:01. And then I see Drake May at the 16:12, and I say, well, that seems like overkill. But they did take Jalen Polk the round before. What do you make of, in a best ball format like this, of, seemingly already have your signal callers set, but then you find a way to get a cheap stack on your team late, Polk and May? Is that something that you would subscribe to, that strategy?
Yeah, I've been doing that a little bit, but fortunately the drafts are 20 rounds, and then I usually talk myself out of it, and I'm glad I did. Stroud is all he's going to need at quarterback, except for his bye week. So he's got what he needs. I wouldn't have done it. I can understand why he did.
Another very well drafted team.
Terp, what about specifically that strategy where you seemingly have your quarterback situation locked up, but you see a path there for some extra fantasy goodness? Is that something? I know you and Theo Greminger have drafted a lot of best ball teams together. Is that something that you guys have done?
Yeah, I mean, most of the teams we draft have been 2 quarterback rosters because mostly we got someone in the elite category a little bit earlier. But, with Stroud, Caleb Williams, I don't mind the May pick. Obviously, you're adding Polk in there. It could be a tricky spot, at the end of the season where, they start gelling and take you to, the promised land and get you to this league title. So I don't mind it. I mean, you're trying to score as many points as possible. This is not some of the structures of the FFPC and obviously Fantasy Pros offer where you would never think about taking 3 quarterbacks. In this format, I feel like it makes a lot of sense because we saw quarterback injuries happen a lot last year. A lot of teams were ruined, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields. We can go down the list of plenty of quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, before the season started, that were wiped out because of quarterback injuries. So I don't mind the May pick, pairing him with Polk. I mean, there's a couple other Patriots receivers you can get later that can make it a little interesting. It's a tricky stack, and it's something you can watch down the stretch that might, catapult this team to a league title.
Rick Lowe and Bob Titman were our guests on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour just a few weeks ago. They're drafting tonight from the 7 spot. And Terp, they just end up taking Will Shipley, 64th running back off the board at the 1806. Do you have any insight on how the Eagles plan on using him this year? And is he going too late in drafts?
I think he's the best of the bunch out of him and Gainwell. I mean, Gainwell, you saw last year, he just didn't move the needle for anybody. The problem with that is the Eagles coaching staff loves Gainwell. I mean, and I think he's going to get the first shot if something happens to Barkley or interchange with Barkley. Is that the right decision? I don't think it is. I think Shipley's just a more lively guy. You saw Clemson. He has some juice. He's a guy that you could spell, especially catching the football. If Barkley gets a little nicked up, I think he's the better player, and he's the guy that I would draft. Gainwell is, I drafted him a bunch last year thinking the same thing, with Swift, and it just never materialized. He just was serviceable, okay, but again, he's not a guy that I'd be drafted in this type of format where, these late picks, it gets a little watered down at the running back position. I'd rather shoot for, Shipley, who has, more juice and could be a potential league winner if something happens to Barkley.
Rubio also saying that their coach wears a T-shirt with Gainwell on
He does.
So there you go. That's
Sirianni has his favorites, and that's a fear. That's
the biggest surprise, guys, that I think we'll have in fantasy football is what if we find out that not all of the dysfunction and lack of performance in Atlanta can be blamed on Arthur Smith. That would be the biggest.
In all seriousness, it's one of the top dynamics this year. Everybody loves the Falcons. Everybody loves Drake London. Everybody loves Kyle Pitts. Everybody loves Bijan Robinson. Everybody kind of likes Kirk Cousins, but there's a lot of dynamics there that what if it doesn't work? What if all these guys? What if Kyle Pitts isn't what everybody thought he was?
Can we not all see that already, Terp? Is that going to surprise anybody if Kyle Pitts underwhelms?
Kyle Pitts is the guy that I said a couple weeks ago that's going to start moving up into this 2-3 turn, and that's exactly where he's getting to. And I think he's going to get higher, especially with these tight ends that are just getting killed off the board in the second round.
All the talk about how they're using him moving
around. All the press is positive. One thing that we all laughed at when it happened, but if you really think about it, it might work out in our favor at the end of the season if something happens to Kirk Cousins. Everybody ripped the Michael Penix pick.
Yeah.
Nobody can actually sit there and say it was a good pick, all things considered, with this team. The team that could win a lot of games, win a division, make the playoffs. But if something happens to Kirk Cousins, there's not many better situations that are better than Michael Penix. So he's a guy that could not miss a beat. I'm not saying you draft him or anything like that, but with this roster and the way it's constructed, Darnell Mooney's no slouch. The Falcons are definitely – everybody's so high on them. And usually that works out, but if for whatever reason it doesn't, you're talking about teams that could – you get 3 picks in the top, 30 picks that could easily sink.
I want to go back to Dwain McFarland's squad here, guys. We've been praising it quite a bit tonight. However, did he wait too long on his second tight end? He's got Mark Andrews Ferrell at the 209. He doesn't take another tight end until the 1809, 16 rounds later. He's got Andrews. He's got Zach Ertz on his team. I know it's been fun talking about his team. 6 out of his first 8 picks were receivers. And then after that, 6 out of his next 8, 6 out of his next 7 picks were running backs after that. But I worry about the tight end here. Or is this just a situation look, if Andrews doesn't hit, he's probably not winning this league anyway. What do you make of the tight ends for Dwain McFarland tonight?
Steve Dre is making a request that you scroll, please.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, guys. Point that out.
Thank you, Steve.
Because I'm looking at a different board. It's just easier for me. I don't always. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So what
Steve.
Team are we talking about?
Team 4. Team 4.
God, you guys are really on this Team 4.
Well, look at the tight end specifically, Ferrell, because we haven't talked about the tight ends here. Andrews in the 2nd and then Ertz in the 18th.
Would like to see a little Likely in there, maybe.
Likely was drafted in the 11th round.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, instead of one of those running backs.
I don't know if I would like to draft him in the 11th round, but it's to be determined what Ertz has left in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we see a repeat of what Adam Thielen did at Carolina last year. But Ertz is quite a football player that can help a rookie quarterback.
He's going to be serviceable for the first couple of weeks, and he's going to fall off the cliff, and you're never going to hear from him again.
All right, and then Dulcich here as tight end 34 for him in the 19th. Terp, is that enough at tight end for McFarland?
The question with Team 4 is going to start to be the depth of the division. If something happens to Jaden Daniels or Mark Andrews, this team could go from my favorite to middle of the pack team easily.
What?
Easily.
No.
But the issue is that
wait a minute. You turncoat you.
I'm not
You're a ride or die on.
They don't have depth.
One
thing about the team is they're very good at receiver. No issues whatsoever at running back.
It didn't matter. A couple of minutes.
Top heavy with Jaden Daniels and Andrews.
You only needed 3 points from the number 2 running back. Matter of fact, you said you don't even need a number 2 running back.
I don't even care about the running back. That means absolutely nothing to me. And they have one or two guys that are going to be serviceable for them every week. The issue is who's the second quarterback, who's the second tight end.
You cannot
cut
Andrews.
He's going to be behind the 8 ball at the position.
Higbee's being drafted in this round. He's on the pup.
I don't know why Tyler Higbee is ever drafted in any round.
Yeah,
for this year specifically, you're talking because of the injury?
Like literally.
Oh, ever.
2 years ago or 3 years ago, he was a heavens. I remember him at the end of the season, and Tyler Higbee was my favorite player in the world because you remember the run he went on at the end of the season. I mean, it literally happened right around the playoffs in the FFPC main event, Fantasy Pros, whatever it was at that time. And then nobody had any free agent money, and everybody that got him at a good discount. And he was just an absolute monster down the stretch. So Tyler Higbee was great then, but now, yuck.
ML in the YouTube chat right now, we're talking about Zach Ertz earlier. Zach Ertz married to former U.S. women's national soccer team member Julie Ertz, and ML is saying that both the Ertzes, Julie and Zach Ertz, will have the same fantasy football impact this year.
Hey, Rubio is still coming with quality comments.
Ertz was relevant with Kingsbury. I'm not sitting here saying I'm drafting Zach Ertz, but he's going to give you some serviceable weeks, and he's going to put the Ben Sinnott train, on the back burner for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just like Trey McBride last year, it's going to be very similar to Ben Sinnott this year. Expect the same thing. Kingsbury is not just going to throw Ertz unless he obviously gets hurt. He's going to give him work early in the season. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be a fantasy superstar, but he'll give you 1, 2, 3 weeks early in the season. It's going to be, annoying to your Ben Sinnott shares. But then I feel like the town will take over. And
yeah, he'd be displaced by Sinnott, and that's good.
Correct.
That's good. Yeah, Ertz, man, what a player. We talked earlier about the Bare Knuckles Championship and what a great crowd that draws and how everyone loves watching it. I truly believe that the most well-attended activity that we could ever have at the FFPC, beyond the watch parties, would be the Dave Terp roast. It would be just. It would be.
I would enjoy it very much.
And I mean, and I would have such loving things to say.
You could be like the lead mic guy.
Yeah, because
hosted by Ferrell Elliott.
Yeah, and
the roast master.
It would just be wonderful.
Sell tickets, give it to charity. I love it. I mean, everybody wins.
But we joke about this. This could be something we put together with the FFPC in the coming years for sure.
I always want to be roasted,
and you might get that opportunity in Vegas. The best place to be roasted. Michael Mayer, 1903 tonight. Ferrell for Team 3 tonight. That is the FFPC Joe squad of Noel Coombs and Joey DeFilippis. Not necessarily a commentary on their team. I think they waited on tight end too with Conklin, Juwan Johnson, and Michael Mayer. As long as what do we know anything more? I should be up on the Juwan Johnson injury. Is that expected to be pretty significant, knocking him out at any portion of the season?
I think he's back by week 1. I mean, it might be a little.
It's going to be close.
Week 1, but it's not. I don't think he's going to be back much before then. I mean,
okay.
Taysom Hill is going to be an annoyance, and we all know how that goes on these channels.
So, in regards to Michael Mayer, Ferrell, is he being underdrafted based on, they soaked some pretty good draft capital in him last year before taking Brock Bowers this year? I would imagine they want to use both these guys on the field, right?
Right, I would say so. And he's a talented player with a lot of skill set. And John Terry just said the quarterback can't throw the ball further than 2 yards.
Right.
So there's a huge spectrum and range of outcomes for Mayer, but I think there's so much offensive weaponry that can catch the ball on this team. Plus, in the way that they play in the good weather. And the way they have to play to catch Kansas City, look, it's not going to be fantasy relevant.
I would love for Brevin Jordan to be traded somewhere else.
Yeah, he's looking like Mayer could have a Gerald Everett year. What does that do for you?
Yeah,
45 catches, 5 touchdowns. How does it work?
Anything's possible at this late.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I want to bring up, Mark Garcia here. I know we're closing out the draft here, but Mark Garcia from the 8th spot tonight. That's high-low FF from 1 week season. He takes Josh Allen in the 4th round, guys. Does not take another quarterback until the 18th with JJ McCarthy, but then he gets Sam Darnold in the 19th. Smart strategy here to stat cuff those Vikings quarterbacks to go with Josh Allen. So essentially, you have 3 quarterbacks, but really it's 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, it could be, Yeah, two, I guess you could say, with the Vikings thing. It's really one. I mean, I don't know how you depend on the Vikings quarterbacks to do anything.
He should have drafted the Raiders, Terp.
He should have drafted Aiden O'Connell. I think he's a guy that I would take over. I mean, you're pretty much wasting a roster spot. He's one of the smartest guys in the game, and I'm sure he's listening in some regards. So he definitely knows what he's doing in these streets. But I would have taken a third quarterback somewhere else.
So I say Josh Allen and JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold are basically one quarterback. So he has essentially two quarterbacks on his team. And John Terry says, actually, it's really just one quarterback. He's got.
That's pretty much what I agree. He probably even come on here and admitted himself. He probably got a little.
He might. But what does that say? I mean, those guys are still in charge of keeping guys like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson when he comes back. They're in charge of keeping those guys relevant. So maybe this is just a commentary. You don't want to draft either Vikings quarterback or both Vikings quarterbacks this year because their numbers for quarterbacks won't be good, but their numbers will be good enough to make sure Justin Jefferson is still a mid-first round pick and he's going to come through on that. Still enough to say, Jordan Addison's going to be a wide receiver 3 this year. Is that possible that we can hate the quarterbacks that much but still love the skill position players?
Well, they're going to have to throw the ball because Terp has already put running back Jones on the injured reserve. So they're going to have to put the ball in the air.
Yep.
Mr. Irrelevant tonight, guys, is Theo Johnson, the rookie tight end out of Penn State.
So many tight ends, man. He's
like
tight end craze, man.
42.
Theo Johnson's better than a lot of the guys drafted.
I drafted him in a best ball league, I'd say like a week or so ago. I don't know how you draft Daniel Bellinger. I mean, he could be okay and he could be serviceable, and Theo Johnson's a freak, but it's just a question of can he figure out the position in the NFL.
You love the athlete, and I don't know what makes you
tested. He's one of them athletic freaks to combine who literally lit it up, and that's why he got a lot of positive press. You could do way worse in the 20th round than him. You could always, things, their tight end position are crazy, so he could easily be cut or a very asset to your team.
It's weird to see the last two tight ends drafted tonight, fellas, are from the same team, Johnson and Bellinger, which is it's wild to think about.
Bring back Darren Waller, please.
I don't know. I don't think Darren Waller wants to come back. That's the thing. It's not a matter of convincing the Giants. It's a matter of convincing Waller. Well, guys, let's just take a quick look at this draft tonight. We see a lot of purple up at the front of the draft. We see a lot of purple at the back end of the draft. I'll scroll up here so we can once again look at the top of the draft board tonight for everybody one last time to look at it. We have talked about a lot of teams tonight. Terp, you said you like team 4, you like team 9. Ferrell, you said you like team 12.
I didn't change my mind either.
You didn't change your mind.
I didn't change my mind either. 4 is still the best team in the league. 9 second. I like 5. I like 1.
12 the whole way.
So Terp, didn't you say that the Linkowski-Finkel team from the 5 spot? Didn't you say you like that?
They would be my third team with team 1.
And I like team 11. I liked what Jared Hines did tonight for sure. Guys, any other teams that stand out to you tonight that deserve mention that maybe we gave short shrift to, or maybe that we also want to say, hey, this team did a really good job. We didn't really talk about Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell from the 2 spot at all. I thought they had an interesting draft. Mahomes and Prescott at quarterback. You get Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, Ford, McLaughlin moves up to the 12th round tonight. They get J.K. Dobbins. They get a piece of that Chargers backfield.
Good draft.
Lamb, Waddle, Devonta Smith, Rashee Rice, Dobbs, Michael Wilson, Malachi Corley, Luke McCaffrey, and A.T. Perry. 3 potential breakout young candidates at wide receiver on the bottom. Tight ends, a little bit of a question mark, but what they lack in quality, they made up in quantity. Schultz, Cade Otton, Ben Sinnott, and of course Dawson Knox there as well. I mean, these guys have been drafting in the pros versus Joes for years, and it kind of shows tonight.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, and people are ready to cut bait with Schultz, a player that caught 60 balls last year and did not have a very good year. I mean, he had some drops, he had some rough games, he had some injuries. I'm not ready to give his job to Brevin Jordan. I like the other tight ends, and for value at the end of the draft, Malachi Corley's a good pick. So yeah, this is a good team.
It's a good team for sure. And I look at those guys, they ended up winning their league. And they've done very well. If you look at Patrick and McDowell over the last 6 years, not only do they have a league championship in Pros versus Joes, they have finished in the top 15 overall 5 out of the last 6 years, including 3 top 10 finishes and a 4th place finish overall. And I think they did a good job.
They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing team
for sure. And you guys know what you're doing as well. This was once again very fun. Week 1 in the books. Terp, I don't believe you'll be with us on Sunday.
I will not be there Sunday, but I'll be back Monday.
Okay, perfect. Follow Terp on Twitter at Dave Terp, the 11-time FFPC league champion, and Ferrell Elliott, who will rejoin me tomorrow night, actually, on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, a traditional show that will air on this here YouTube channel at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Sign up for the KFFSC main event at kffsc.com. Spots still available in Cincinnati coming up in August, and as well as in Louisville, and then the main event online too. Make sure you're checking that out. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me on this Pros vs. Joes journey, night 3.
See you guys.
That is Ferrell Elliott and Dave Terpoilli, the co-hosts with the most here on the program tonight. I want to thank Terp. I want to thank Ferrell. I want to thank the FFPC. I want to thank Darren Armani, who puts together the Pros vs. Joes every year. Our producer, mutual friend Rob, audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and all of our viewers and listeners taking the action in tonight. Want to thank our wonderful guests tonight, Bob Harris, Jared Hines, Brandon Murchison, Robert Finkel, and Michael Zuka as well. Coming up tomorrow, we will have no HSFF hour this Friday. We're going to have it tomorrow night instead at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. 6-time FFPC League winner Steph Anderson is going to join us, and he'll share his wares on how his Fantasy Pros Championship drafts have been going this year. That will be at 10 p.m. tomorrow. The Pros vs. Joes resumes Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the Moonshine League. We're going to have the FFPC Joes led by Daniel Wright and Gino Donnie. You just saw these guys on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour last week. They're going to be drafting Sunday night. Sean Green, who has been watching all the action on the YouTube chat, he and his co-manager Michael Young will be drafting as well. Patrick and Tim Lynch, Rob Cannon and Stephen Rucker, John Bauman and Gordon Chappell, and of course, Danny Mueller drafting from the 12 spot on Sunday night. He is going to be a tough one to beat. Those are the Joes, the FFPC, or excuse me, the industry pros that were going against them will be Josh Hayes from RotoBaller. You're looking at Dan Williamson and Bradley Stalder from the Stack Hunters podcast on Player Profiler. Bob Lung for Big Guy Fantasy Sports and the godfather of the Fantasy Football Expo that's coming up here in just a couple of weeks. JJ Zachariason from Late Round, a guy I just had on the Better Sports Network High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. He's going to be drafting. FantasyGuru.com's Jeff Manns will also be drafting from the 9 spot. And then Mauricio Gutierrez from EstadioFantasy.com is picking 11. So that will be a fun draft. Once again, that action starts at, I believe it says, no, it is 7. Okay, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. My apologies. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I got that wrong. I got my time zones mixed up. 8 p.m. Pros vs. Joes will resume Sunday evening. Don't forget to join the main event. Slow and live drafts are off and running, as well as multiple Fantasy Pros Championship drafts filling up every day. I was going to send everybody to the midnight draft tonight. However, it's already full, so you'll have to wait until 4 p.m. tomorrow to resume your Fantasy Pros Championship $1 million grand prize chasing. Multiple best ball tournament and Superflex best ball tournament drafts filling up every day, live and slow drafts. There are Dynasty startups available both in the traditional sense and the Empire Dynasty leagues that we joined, or that we just started at myffpc.com. So you're free to join those once again right now. Check it out. myffpc.com, your home for high stakes and season-long fantasy football. We will be back tomorrow for you HSFF Hour watchers. We will also have Pat Corain, I should mention, from Legendary Upside on the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on Thursday as well. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. MyFFPC.com is where to go. Go and draft, everybody. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Talk with you on Wednesday, Thursday, or at the latest Sunday when PVJ resumes.